This video is going to be covering amino acids within biochemistry. So within amino acids, specifically, there are 20 amino acids that are incorporated into proteins, meaning that amino acids are what build and make up all of the proteins in our bodies. We will get into how those proteins are produced later on. So all amino acids, they're going to exist in the L form, except for one exception, which is glycine. When we talk about L form, there's two different forms. There's an L form and there is a D form of many of our molecules. What we refer to these as is L form is our left-handed amino acids. D amino acids are our right-handed amino acids. Now, within humans, we only have L amino acids. We only have this left-handed form, this left-handed version of amino acids. When we go into boards and we are answering questions on boards, if we see it, if we're talking about amino acids and we see anything except for that L, immediately we know that cannot possibly be a correct answer. Immediately. So we always look for, if it's included, our L form amino acids. The one exception, and the one that they will typically ask you about, is glycine. This is because glycine is one of our smallest amino acids, and it is different and unique because it does not contain what is known as a chiral carbon. As we know, the building blocks of life are carbon, and amino acids have a central carbon. This is what an amino acid general structure looks like. We have a carbon in the center. We have an amino group, which is a nitrogen and either 2 or occasionally 3 hydrogens. We have a carboxyl group, which is a carbon with 2 oxygens as well as hydrogen. And then we have an R group. This R group is what determines the properties and the function of each of our amino acids. This is what's different. All the rest of the structure is always the same for every amino acid except for the R group. Glycine has its R group is just one singular hydrogen. So we talk about a chiral carbon. It means that there's a central carbon with a different compound at each binding site. Looking at this, because we have a hydrogen up top and our R group is a hydrogen, glycine does not have a chiral carbon. This is very often asked on part 1 boards. They like to ask about glycine. Some more terminology. All of our amino acids are what are called amphoteric. This means they can act either as an acid or as a base. Now, what does that mean in terms of chemistry when we talk about an acid or a base? Acid versus a base. When we talk about acids, we're looking at specifically pH value. If we create a low pH, we are an acid. If we create a high pH, we are a base. We recall pH, specifically, that is the concentration or the number of hydrogens within a solution, the number of hydrogens mixed up into a liquid. So acids are what we call proton, also known as hydrogen donors. So they are giving up hydrogens into the solution, which is why it becomes more acidic. The base, these are either our proton or hydrogen acceptors, so they receive the hydrogen, so they grab onto them, neutralizing them, or they can also be called oxide, so OH donors. So the bases, not only can they accept hydrogens, grab onto hydrogens and neutralize them, they can also give off these hydroxyl groups, hydroxide, OH groups, and that will then bind with the hydrogens and produce water and increase the pH. So all of our amino acids can either act as an acid because it can give off hydrogens from the amino group, or it can act as a base because it can give off the hydroxyl group from the carboxyl side. And again, these R groups, this side chain, is what determines the amino acid's overall function. We talk about essential amino acids. Essential is referring to the fact that these are required in our diet, meaning that our body cannot produce them naturally. We have to consume them from food in order to get enough of them. These are phenylalanine, valine, tryptophan, threonine, isoleucine, methionine. Histidine is our special one. We're going to come back to that in 1 second. Arginine, leucine, and lysine. The mnemonic to remember all of these is Private Tim Hall. This is one of the times in boards where you just have to suck it up and you have to memorize. You need to memorize what amino acids are essential. This mnemonic helps with that, as well as the flashcards we will see later, to remember which ones are absolutely necessary. Histidine, this is the exception, and boards loves to ask about exceptions. Histidine is only essential in children. Histidine sounds very similar to histamine. Histamine is one of our chemicals that our body produces for allergic reactions. In very young children, their immune system is still developing, so they are not actually able to produce their own histamine yet. They're unable to produce the histidine to turn it into histamine. So it is then an essential amino acid. This is often a board question that they like to ask, that histidine is the essential amino acid in children. We have all of our additional non-essential amino acids: alanine, asparagine, aspartic acid, also known as aspartate. Like I said in the introduction, this is a constant improving process. So if you find anything that I say that is incorrect, please let me know and I will correct it, I will fix it, I will add, I will edit, and ensure that this is as the highest of standards as it can be. We have aspartic acid, known as aspartate, cysteine, glutamic acid, also known as glutamate, glycine, proline, serine, and tyrosine. So we divide these up into essential, meaning we have to consume them, and non-essential, which means our body can produce them. We're going to continue with other ways that we divide up the amino acids. We talk about ketogenic, purely ketogenic amino acids. When we hear that word, ketogenic, immediately what pops out is that keto. Most of us have heard about the keto diet, that low-carb diet, which puts your body into ketoacidosis. What that means is that our bodies produce these specific chemicals called ketones, or ketone bodies, which give energy in place of glucose. Because we don't have carbs, we don't have a lot of glucose, so our body produces ketones. The two specific amino acids that are purely ketogenic means that they only produce ketones. They cannot be used in something like gluconeogenesis. Are our leucine and lysine. We have mnemonics for all of these. We say Lucy lies to get the keys. Keys for ketone. Lucy is our leucine. Lies is our lysine. Lucy lies to get the keys. Additional information: lysine is also a precursor to a special lipoprotein called carnitine. apologies, it is a specific protein that is called carnitine. Carnitine's job is to take large chain fatty acids into the mitochondria to be broken down through a process called beta oxidation. This is going to come back. We're going to see this again later on. Next, we have what are called the aromatic or the ring amino acids. These are phenylalanine, tyrosine, and tryptophan. Our mnemonic is your pal Tyrone will trip you in the ring. Remember, 2 of these are also essential amino acids. We go back, we look at those. Tryptophan and phenylalanine are our essential amino acids. An additional fact, there's something called an indole ring. What that referring to, indole is referring to a 5 component ring. So we have your tryptophan, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It has a 5-corner ring instead of the traditional 6 hexagon. So that is what we call an indole ring. These are little things that can be asked on boards. We will talk a lot more about all of these a little bit later on in another video. We have sulfur-containing amino acids. These are cysteine, methionine, and cysteine. The mnemonic that we have to remember these, to be an MCC, you have to have sol. Cysteine, methionine, and cysteine. I'm going to rearrange these so that way they are consistent. MCC, keep them in order. And then a little note, cysteine is really just a combination of 2 cysteines. The cysteine is 2 cysteines linked together through what is called a disulfide bond. That is always going to pop up as a test question. They love asking about disulfide bonds, and we'll see those pop up a couple more times. Branched chain amino acids. We have a mnemonic, live on a branch. These are leucine, isoleucine, and valine. Again, a lot of these amino acids are going to be just memorization type things. We need to be able to learn them and know when we see branch chain, remember these 3, because that's the way that we're going to answer these questions. There is a disease associated with the inability to break down branched chain amino acids. We call this maple syrup urine disease. Our body does not have the appropriate enzymes to break down these specific amino acids, and the urine becomes kind of thicker, it becomes sweet, and becomes very similar to maple syrup, which is why it is called maple syrup urine disease. That's as far as you really need to go in order to answer questions about this condition, that we are unable to break down branched chain amino acids, being leucine, isoleucine, and valine. We have acidic amino acids, being our 2 big acid ones, aspartate and glutamate. Our mnemonic is acidy, like acidity, of as and glutes. Additionally, the aspartame, so the aspartame is a common artificial sweetener used, contains, and it was broken down, it contains aspartic acid. In excess, this is actually neurotoxic. So aspartame or aspartic acid or aspartate can have a neurotoxic effect. Continuing, sources of amino acids. This is not often tested on. However, it is occasionally. So if you want to focus in on this chart and be fully prepared, you absolutely can. Things like wheat, rice, wheat and rice contain lysine. Legumes are high in tryptophan. Maize, which is our corn products, have lysine and tryptophan. Pulses, which are another similar to legumes, another type of vegetable, contain methionine as well as cysteine, that contain our sulfur containing amino acids. Eggs from chicken specifically does not contain any specific amino acids. However, they do have high quality protein as well. They contain, I should say, they don't have any specifically named amino acids, but they contain lots of them, lots of different kinds. So they are often referred to as the general source of many amino acids. That is the end of our first video, and we'll continue in the next one.